Ready? All right. Good morning, everybody. This is the very first inaugural meeting of the City Streets and Safety Advisory Committee. A little bit of history on why we're here. You may remember, many of you folks may remember that 4 or 5 months ago, the commissioners decided to go ahead and reorganize and reactivate the committees that had been deactivated approximately 2 years ago. Those committees, there were 5 of them. They were animal issues, beach and boardwalk, environmental, streets transportation, and trees and green. But the commissioners decided, for the sake of expediency, to combine some of those. And so now we've combined those 5 committees and a few of the task forces into just these 2 committees, Streets and Safety, initial SAS, which is us, and the Environmental Committee that'll be meeting tomorrow at the same time. So that's where we are, and that's where we're going to start. A couple of housekeeping rules. I think everybody here, at least everybody here on the dais, has taken the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act information seminar that was given by our Attorney Ogden, on Monday. If you haven't, or you'd like to see it again, it's available on our website. If anybody out there would like to see it, they're more than welcome to see it. It's eye-opening sometimes, as far as the FOIA violations, or how easy it is to make a FOIA violation. A couple of rules I'm going to repeat just to remind everybody that rule number 1 is no more than 4 people can sit together at the same time at a table, in a room, or whatever, and discuss anything even vaguely having to do with our committee, because that is it's one more than a quorum, makes it a meeting, whether you think it's a meeting or not. We may be meeting at Dunkin' Donuts, but we've ran into each other, but we're all sitting together and we're talking about Chief Banks. Well, suddenly it's a meeting, so we want to avoid that. We'd be talking about how great he was. The other thing on FOIA, we want to be very careful that we don't say anything that can be taken out of context. And I think Attorney Ogden had pointed out that we never want to say anything that we wouldn't want to see written up in the Gazette. So I think that's a good rule of thumb. Chris just left, but he has access to this meeting. So we want to just, before we say anything, we may give some thought, or is this something that we're willing to say to the entire universe? We also have a civility code, which is rather new this year. I hope we don't have to talk or even discuss this ever again after today. But the civility code simply says, it's basically the golden rule put in a public forum, that we're going to treat others as we want to be treated. We're not going to talk over people. We can certainly, with 9 people sitting up here, and often an audience of many more than that, we're going to have disagreements. As a matter of fact, if we don't have disagreements, I've picked the wrong people for this committee, because we wanted an overview of people with various ideas, various perspectives, and so we don't want to have, we only need 2 if we didn't have different opinions. So we're going to certainly disagree about things. The only thing I ask, and I think our civility code insists upon, that we not be disagreeable. We can disagree without being disagreeable. There's no need to yell over anybody. Everybody will have a chance to talk. Everybody will have a chance to speak. The best way, because we are a big DS, and I've sat on it for a couple of years, and I know the guy on this end can't hear the guy on this end if other people are talking. So we request that only one person talk at a time. The best way to do it is, if you have something you'd like to say, is just put your hand up and go ahead and talk. If there's somebody's hand already up, wait till that person's done, and then put yours up and sort of take the position of the floor. So any questions about that? Are we all okay on that? Great. Election of, we have officers, vice chair and secretary. And we'll start with secretary. My friend Patricia Davis has had experience as a secretary for the prior Beach and Boardwalk Committee, and I'd like to nominate her to be secretary of this group. The secretary's job, of course, is to keep the minutes, keep the actions, sometimes sign documents on behalf of the group. Are there any objections to the nomination of Pat as secretary? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You got it.
Thank you.
On my left, I have my vice presidential nominee. I thought, well, who do I know on that committee that's better advice than Cliff? So, so actually, Cliff and I have worked together a good number of years, and I think that if I were not here for some reason, he had to take over the committee, he would be able to do an excellent job at it. So I've nominated Cliff Hidley to be our vice president. Is there any objections to that? All in favor?
Aye.
I technically should have had those seconded, but I'm new, so. All right, and Pat, and our new secretary, Patricia's telling me that I forgot the roll call. So,
I was trying to be subtle about it.
all right, here it is. I'm going to call your name if you just confirm that you are here and present. Cliff Hilderly.
Here.
Patricia Davis.
Here.
Kathy Olsterholm.
Here.
D. Collins Roth.
Yep.
Michael Venazzi.
Here.
David Diefendorfer.
Here.
Steve Curson.
Here.
And Melissa Risco.
Here.
And Mark Saunders is here also. So we have a full house at 100% attendance. Great. Okay, today's meeting is going to be a little different than the normal meetings. Our normal meetings we'll have old business, we'll have new business. Because it is a brand-new committee, we really don't have any old business. By next meeting, we can talk about some of the things that we brought up today. Remember, because of FOIA, we cannot have a substantial discussion or a vote on anything that we haven't put in the agenda from the prior month. We haven't noticed to the public that we're going to discuss it. So today our discussions are going to be mostly suggestions, and they're going to be suggestions for future discussions. And I know that sounds like a mess, but that's what we're going to have to do. So that next time we can then, on the agenda, put the items that we're going to discuss, and they'll be properly noticed. So that's our plan of action to get going. From this point on, I just want to remind everybody that we are an advisory committee, and that means that our job is to gather information from the public, to discuss that information amongst ourselves, possibly come up with suggestions and recommendations, and then make those recommendations to the Board of Commissioners, who will then vote on those recommendations. Or they could alter them, or they could just ignore them. But nevertheless, our job ends once we send a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. In order to save us a lot of time, the Board of Commissioners has recommended, and I think it's a good idea, for us to, prior to actually spending a lot of time discussing a subject, they would like us to put forth that subject for their consideration so they can let us know whether or not this is something that they're even interested in considering. I was on prior committees, and I think many of you were on prior committees that would spend weeks and months and longer on various subjects, only to bring the suggestion to the Board of Commissioners, and then in 5 minutes, them shoot it down. So to avoid that happening, we're going to make our intentions known to the Board of Commissioners ahead of time, and to get their approval before we go ahead and spend substantial time on a subject. Everybody okay with that? So that's how we're going to start. First thing I thought we would do, we have some, by the way, normally this is when we talk about correspondence. Again, we didn't have the correspondence ahead of time, so it is going to be on the agenda. The correspondence, we got something from Hoyt, and I believe we had something from somebody else, and they will be part of the permanent record, even though you don't see them here yet today. Old business, again, we have no old business, but new business, several of the members that are sitting up here today were on prior committees that were sunsetted, terminated a couple of years ago. Those have been folded into our committee here today, and I would just like to ask those members if they have any subjects that they think that we should put on our list for considerations. And by the way, we don't need to discuss these now, we just need to throw them out there. I will make a list of them, myself and Patricia will make a list of them, and then we will send you an email of the entire list and ask for your priorities. So you'll be able to list from 1 to 10, and then I'll combine those mathematically into a list of priorities, and we'll put those for the next meeting, maybe the top 10 ideas. And then at the next meeting, we will discuss, and we will get those, we will simmer those down to maybe 3 or 4 that we want to go forward with. Okay? So I'll ask Steve, do you have anything from your last committee that you think is worth going forward with?
I think we pretty much wrapped everything up. One of the things that was hanging out there was the historical markers on the boardwalk. And it looks like there's going to be a task force that's going to be put together to kind of work on that. So we're pretty much done with with what we had to do.
Okay. Kathy, on that way?
I don't have anything
You
at
need to
this,
pull that down a little bit. There you go.
I do not have anything at this time. I would like to make sure, though, that decisions we make are precedents that, and are not simply the result of comments from people, that they do become something that becomes part of the future for planning for the city.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. Dave, do you have anything?
I have several new ideas, but I'm just going to go over the.
Okay, well, we're going to do new ideas
Right,
next.
Correct.
Yep.
So one of the things that we funded that, the city funded that traffic study by, and I can't remember the contractor that did that. So the Streets and Transportation Committee had suggested that, the commissioners voted on it, and the committee never got a chance to review any of that stuff. So I'm sure the commissioners read it. I didn't even read it because it's 2 years ago, and after we disbanded the committee, I didn't even read it. So I'm not sure what's in there. So it might be worth looking at to see if there's any things that they had proposed that could take action on.
I'll see if I can get copies of that for everybody. Okay. Melissa?
So I was on the Animal Issues Committee, and it appears that the open item was to align the times that dogs can be, I'm going to read it right here from it, was to align when dogs can be on the boardwalk from May 15th through September 15th to align with current parking permit season.
Okay. I remember that.
Yes.
Anybody else, as far as the old business that was being done by prior committees? Patricia, you have anything? Yeah?
No, the only thing we had that wasn't mentioned was dark skies, but I think the M and.
Right, they're doing.
M and C are discussing that tomorrow.
Great, okay. The next thing I have, and there will be opportunities for us to come up with new ideas, but first I'd like to introduce Chief Banks, if I may. And if he would be kind enough to come up and talk to us a little bit, we'll just throw some ideas at you. All right, thank you.
Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for having me, and congratulations being selected to the board. So
Thank you.
look forward to working together.
I've asked Chief Banks to be here because I think that nobody knows safety more than Chief Banks knows safety. And not only that, nobody knows what other committees have done and what commissions have tried to do over the last, how many years, Chief? 28 years, something?
I've been
So
here,
this-
I've been here 33 years
So
now.
there you go. So he can prevent us from trying to reinvent the wheel all over again, I think. So I'd like to just open it up to the chief by asking, what would you like to see this committee to accomplish over the next 2 years, we'll say?
Yeah, when I was invited to first come here, I started trying to think about this and where I wanted to go, because again, I have a lot of thoughts on it, but again, I want to sit there and take a lot of the direction from this board so I can sit there and give you actually information. 'Cause I can throw, well, speeding, everybody talks about speeding or stop signs or different issues and all, but I do have some data, so if I have a specific area or whatever that you want to sit there and talk about or whatever, I can come back to the committee and be more useful, I think, that way to bring it to your attention, to be able to help formulate, is this something that needs to be looked at or not. So with that being said, if you'll just indulge me for a few moments, what thinking about that is, I was like, okay, what do I get asked all the time about respect to like traffic, pedestrian safety, bicyclists, and now electric bikes and scooters? And what's the police department's thoughts on how to best manage all these competing modes on transportation to avoid serious injuries? I think that's what we're all here for, about the safety concerns. And again, this is just one section of the entire thing of Rehoboth Beach. So I start off with, as we all know, Rehoboth Beach presents a unique challenge when it comes to traffic management because of the high volume of vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists, and now the increased use of electric bicycles and scooters, particularly during the summer months. Preventing serious injuries and fatalities requires a multifaceted approach. First, education is key. Many of our visitors are not local, and many are not familiar with our ordinances or the layout of our streets. Clear signage, public awareness campaigns, and outreach through hotels, rental shops, and social media can help educate pedestrians, cyclists, and scooters, riders, and safe practices of our local laws. Second, enforcement must remain consistent. Direct patrols focus on pedestrian crosswalks, bike lanes, and heavily trafficked intersections to ensure that both motorists and non-motorists are following the rules. Targeted enforcement against reckless driving, speeding, or unsafe scooter use can directly reduce that risk. Third, infrastructure plays a role. Partnering with the city officials to improve crosswalk visibility and traffic calming measures and ensure that the bike and scooter users have a safe designated areas will help separate competing modes of transportation. Finally, data-driven deployment is essential. By trafficking where collisions or near misses most often occur, we can strategically assign officers and resources to those hotspots, making interventions where they will have the most impact. So in short, the best way to manage these competing modes of traffic is through education, consistent enforcement, infrastructure improvements, and data-driven deployment, all working together, maintaining safety for everyone. And also, that's my first part that I would sit there and say with traffic that we have to sit down and focus on what areas that we want to take on, because all those at different times. I can pull out data on different streets, and I'll go into that in a little bit, and say, the data may not show that there's a speeding issue, okay? Speed limit's 25 miles an hour, and there may be ups and downs as far as the speeds and all, but that doesn't tell the whole story. If you're sitting on the street and you know that cars are going too fast because you have the street's not very wide, you have cars, even if they are going 25 or 27 miles an hour, if the streets aren't wide, like I said, you have bicyclists, you have strollers, joggers, walkers. Well, then 10 miles an hour might be too fast for the congestion. So just because I throw a lot of numbers out and we have some data to sit there and say what average speed for this day or that day is at, doesn't tell the whole story. So that's where it's going to get important to focus on. Your job's, I guess, to go out, just like mine, to go out to the public and talk to the visitors. So we'll get into a little bit, but there has been a petition out there on one street in town about safety as far as the speeds and things like that. So that's going to be obviously one area that I ask you to talk about or think about putting on your list. I will sit there and say when we talk about what have we done, I think that's important to so far this year, we've actively participated in federally sponsored public safety campaigns in partnership with the Delaware Office of Highway Safety. These include winter and spring speed enforcement, DUI patrols, distracted driving enforcement, pedestrian safety campaigns, occupant protection initiatives, and drive sober or get pulled over campaigns. We also conducted speed enforcement throughout the summer and continued those efforts into September and October. The other thing that we did is bicycle safety initiatives, and we continue to do that today, but most of it is during the summer months and the spring. As part of the commitment to the road safety, we installed over 800 bike lights this summer on bicycles that were being operated without the proper lighting, helping ensure visibility and protection, particularly at night. It's not just handing these lights out. I can tell you we stop and we always have screwdrivers and all. We install all of them. We're not just going to hand it and it just goes off and gets thrown away or they don't use it. We actually give that to them and we put it on for them. We also renewed our partnership with the Delaware Department of Transportation, the J1 student program. Together, we train and educate international student workers on bicycle safety, including the importance of obeying Delaware's bicycle and pedestrian laws. That's tricky, too. We're out there and we're trying to educate them on what our rules and regulations are. Don't ride on the sidewalk. But they're being told another thing, that Delaware law is this, but you might want to ride on the sidewalks out on the highway because the roadways are too fast and too dangerous. So they're getting mixed signals. And the reality is, when I'm out there with some of my officers and with Del Dodd and DSP and others, we're seeing some of these individuals that sign up for bicycles can't even ride a bicycle. So then they keep trying to come back 2 or 3 times where to finally kind of master just the basics, and then they take off with it. So obviously that creates an issue. The big thing, as we all know, that's going to I would like to see tackled, I guess, is electronic scooters and bicycles. And that is tricky. Here in Rehoboth Beach and other beach resorts, it's a mode of transportation for our J1 students and other workers that live close by to be able to come in town, be able to visit us and go to work and just enjoy. But the reality is a lot of these scooters don't just go 5, 10, 15 miles an hour. Some of them will go 40 or higher. And you don't have to have a certain age. So now you're getting into minors with no supervision, just flying up down the roadway. And so that becomes very dangerous. Number one is we can't catch them. I get asked all the time, well, why don't you just pull these individuals over? Well, if you're in a car or even if you're on a bicycle, if they don't want to stop, they're not going to stop. And they just go flying by you. And make no bones about it. And this is an important concept here. We go chasing someone on foot or a bicycle or even in a car, and they ride out in front and pull over or try to get away and run out in front of that car and gets hit by a car, we own them. They're running because of us. So the liability is there. That's just the reality of life that we're in today. And I'm not making excuses. It has to be dealt with. There's symposiums. I know Cliff goes with me down to Bethany Beach each year. Ocean City has the same issue. Bethany Beach, Dewey Beach, quite honestly, in all these towns. I did pull the ordinance. If you go to Harrington PD in the city of Harrington, they just came up with a new ordinance. They're having trouble over there. So it's not just a beach issue with the electronic bicycles and all. And again, I'm not negative to that. I've said this many times standing up here when there's transportation committees and things about bicycle safety on the boardwalk. Should it be ended? Is it too heavily congested? And believe it or not, I was once young, and I loved coming down here with my family and all, ride the boardwalk, so I wouldn't encourage that. So does the time have to be changed? I'm not sure. That may be something you want to look at, but probably not, because it's a two-way street. It's easy to say we have too many bicycles up and down the boardwalk, but if people are doing it responsibly, then maybe it won't be an issue. And it's not always the bicycle issue, the fault. A lot of the pedestrians or runners may have earphones on and all that, and when they decide to say stage right, they cut right in front of bicyclists too. So it's a give and take, so please hear me up here. I'm not ever putting out that somebody else is at fault. Usually there's contributing factors to that. But that is one thing I would highly recommend that we try to take on, or at least look at and come to some kind of conclusion if you're asking my opinion. Obviously, we're working on safety measures with cameras and stuff at the bandstand, again, that other commissioners are already taking on, so I'm not going to talk about that unless somebody has a specific question for that. But another topic that I get asked about, and I get phone calls, and it was asked by the city manager to be brought to this committee, is on Columbia Avenue. There was a speed bump that was damaged and taken out. We had some individuals over there call us up and say, we want it back. The city said, okay, we'll go ahead and put it back. It was ordered. It's right now, it's down at Public Works Department. Decision was made not to put it in, and we had it lined up to some traffic control in late August, but we had numerous of calls and emails asking us, don't put it back in, we don't want it. And all from different streets and all that. So we had a conflicting, does it go back or not? So that may be a topic you want to take on. Maybe it's not, and all, but that is kind of out there now for a decision to put that bump back on Columbia Avenue that was there. And the same token on Columbia Avenue about the speed bump, again, about speeding performed. They would like to see extra enforcement over there that comes to me, did have some speed data and all that. That, again, that doesn't tell the entire story. Henlopen Avenue and St. Michael's, they actually had a petition out. That may be a topic that you want to discuss and take on. The city manager asked me to bring that up. And it's reference to, again, speeding, just traffic safety. They're talking about they would love maybe to additional stop signs. They're talking about they would like to speed cameras, like the construction zone cameras or whatever. Again, if we pick a topic, I'll be glad to sit down and try to assist in any way I can. There's laws against it, first of all, that was passed with, that Del can use, like had the one at Nassau now. That's a construction zone. Obviously, right now, we don't have something on Cantaloupe as a construction zone, and it all comes with a fee. Nobody's putting those cameras in and doing it without a fee and collection. I get asked all the time, why don't we have speed cameras? Well, legislatively, you got to be able to do that and install them, and then a company doesn't do it without a fee. So they're going to, first of all, do their own study. Is it feasible, and am I going to make money off of it? That's just the reality of it. That may not be popular to say, but that's how the system works. It's not something the city would buy and be able to control. So that's out there. We did have this year, summer, had some individuals call up from State Road about speeding, but more ironically, it was about DART buses, and that's not calling them out because obviously there's a lot of other modes of transportation on that. So I did reach out to DART or whatever and talk about the bus drivers. There was a couple of them speeding, but for the most part, when we were down there really looking at the DART buses to sit there and call up and get the numbers, we just couldn't really identify at any time that they were speeding and all. But some of the individuals that wrote me asked to have another stop sign on State Road there at either Munson Street or at Hickman Street and all to be able to slow things down. Again, that's a state maintained. That's not to say we can't do it. Over the years, I will say, Department of Transportation's been more lenient, I think, about what municipalities would like to do and make changes. I think from their because before, hey, what's the crash data? What information do you have to supply? And they do their own work or whatever, looking at it and put the speed cables out and things like that. Now I kind of get the impression, and things change with administrations, but they're willing to let municipalities do something. They, one, assume the cost. Two, if they're, the maintenance of it. And then if we're willing to share the information, did it work? What feedback did they get back? If we decide to put speed bumps in somewhere, or did it actually fix the issue that you wanted, or did it create others? Did you get more phone calls about, the noise from the speed bump, people coming and going from the stop sign, accelerating late at night or not? So again, I think they're a great resource and partner, and that's been my thing over the last few years, that they're much more willing to work with municipalities as long as you're willing to do it and give them the feedback on what's going on. And that's what we've seen on State Road too, where the city partnered recently with the crosswalks there at Munson Street and all that. I think has been really good with a little bump out and things. So, I'm just not sure what kind of areas you want to go into. We can go on crime, what your committee wants to look at, safety. I think I'm willing to just kind of stop there and let you guys digest it and see if you have specific questions. But the
If you
Henlopen
wouldn't mind-
Avenue, State Road, Columbia, those are the ones I would really start looking at. Munson Street, as you know, last few years from the Transportation Committee, actually Munson Street Road's put solar speed signs up. So they have kind of put more striping at the driveways and all to try to bring the roadway in smaller per se, so the cars will automatically want to slow down. So again, that goes back to what I said. My first statement is about the environmental effects. What can we do to try to sit there and make people feel that I mean, I hear comments over the years when they redid some streetscape over by Lake behind the department here, how tight that is. It is a little tight, but at the same time, a lot of it is just what your mind looks like, how it's tunneling down, because the width is still there, meets all the standards that a lane has to be, and with cars. But the effect of it is, you slow down, or I think you slow down. I know I do. Now, yes, the radius turning is a little bit hard, so I don't want to sit there and say there's not issues with those kind of things, but environmental, what you do with the traffic patterns and where you want to send people. And then I guess I would just leave it at, a lot of times I hear signage. I think you need to have some signage, but you need to make sure they're in strategic spots or locations, because if you're putting something around a traffic circle, their eyes are too busy to concentrate on everything. They want to see where the cars are coming, so you're going to miss something. So it has to be in advance if you're going to do it. The answer is not always, in my opinion, but again, I'm not an expert, I'm not an engineer. It's just, you can only focus on so much, and we have cars parked on both sides of the street. So putting something out on a sidewalk as you're going by and you're looking around for pedestrians and everything else around you, and cars blocking possibly on signs, that comes problematic too, on just how we're kind of unique in this town with how we do our parking. So, and unique is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Just sometimes creates some challenges, but also creates a lot of opportunities. So,
We're definitely unique.
yes.
I'm going to open it up to the committee. Do you have any questions? We'll start off at Colin. If you have any questions of the captain, chief?
Lots of comments about what you said. I think the most interesting thing is the juxtaposition between infrastructure and just putting up signs, honestly. I have a master's in public policy and have been a transportation advocate for many years. I'm involved in Bike Delaware, walkable cities, and the like. And a lot of these answers exist out there. They've been studied in a lot of communities, and I think it's really important to focus on this in a holistic way, not just what neighbors happen to write the most letters, but say as a city, how do we deal with this? Yes. And the like. So I appreciate all those comments there. I'm a big fan of biking. I'd like to see the focus to be on what causes the harm, which is the cars and speeding and drunk driving, rather than the bikers who are caused harm. But I think that chain flows down. Bikers shouldn't cause harm to pedestrians, right? It's always the most vulnerable user that should be the most protected.
Yes, I
as you
agree.
go. I don't know if it's in the commit of this committee, but my final question would be, I have been focused on the curfew that was put in place, and I'd love to see some data and analysis around that. I don't know if that falls in the remit of this committee, but I'd like to see a postmortem on the summer and how that affected the community. So,
We'll have an opportunity to talk about that in
yeah,
a few minutes.
perfect.
Kathy, do you have any questions or comments?
The only thing that I would like to know is, I understand, excuse me, I was a previous chair of Streets and Transportation. I have not been on that committee recently, but I would like to know if there were parking issues this summer, and if you see that parking, which we keep hearing is an issue, is still an issue with the city.
I guess I would start off with the parking division, and Evan kind of oversees that and has a lot of the data, Assistant City Manager Evan Miller. And all, parking is an issue at certain times. That's the reality of it. However, if you really get off the main streets or whatever, typically you can find parking. Now, if you have a major event coming on, it may be more congested in the area you really want to go to. But usually if you can go to the outline, I did just recently go to a resort advisory committee for Dot and Dart over in Lewis and RAC, and we talked about the numbers and all, and I did share that with the city manager and the as far as the mode, how many we were bringing in with the data. And each year it varies, and I can supply that information too. I don't have it right in front of me, but with the users as far as to get off with parking. So yes, parking is a problem at certain times, others that it's not. The one issue with parking this year that's been going on is around the bandstand during concert events for cars backing out and all. But I think, again, that is a topic that's been worked on with the commissioners currently, and with Assistant City Manager Evan Miller and all that have a plan in place that's been moving forward as far as with the time restrictions and the zones on that during the concerts on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Thank you.
Steve, you have any questions?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, did the city just paint yield signs on the road by the circle? Were they not there before?
They were there before, and did they they're in the middle of research from last year's streetscape or whatever. Then the weather came in too cold to sit there and put some of that. So they've been, if you just look at our crosswalks and things, they have been taking the old ones off and replastering those. So years ago we used to have the yield signs there, and I believe they've got them back.
On the road itself?
I'll have to sit down and look. They
think
should.
just
It was there.
repainted
Yeah. I would imagine that they put it back. I ride it all the time, every day, obviously, and it's one of those things I take for granted now.
Well, I noticed a
but
lot
I
more
believe it's
new new paint job on the road there.
Yes.
A lot of things going on.
Yeah, that was part of that streetscape last year, and again, they had to come back this year, and they're still, I think they're just finishing up this week, I think,
Okay.
to, with some of the striping they were doing at night. Now, again, the weather got too bad, and then the season started, so they had to stop.
And also the crossing signs that blink when you press the button. Has there been any comment about them not being big enough or visible enough?
Not so much those comments. What I hear is the placement that when you hold on, you put them on, nobody stops or whatever, and it's the courtesy. The reality is they don't have to until you're in a roadway. So that's just Delaware's law and all that we have adopted here in Rehoboth Beach. I guess I could be looked at, but in somebody's in a crosswalk, a car doesn't have to stop. So you could be standing there for a while. Common courtesy would sit there and say, you stop. The other thing that is unique in Rehoboth Beach, especially on the avenue, is one may stop and then because of traffic and the cars, you're standing on the sidewalk, but the cars are right up to it, parked. They don't see somebody staying there. So one stops and the other lane just keeps going. And so literally I find myself just when I'm stopped to put my hand out the window and trying to get somebody's attention to stop and then go. That specific question, I haven't said that. Again, we're over as far as we can. We had the median too, when we had the crosswalk. So yeah, just haven't received that kind of comments, but I hear things that nobody stops when you do when we hit the lights. And this, again, it's about education because they technically don't have to. You would like to think courtesy would dictate that, hey, you're in a residential area, you're down, especially if you're down on vacation, slow down, take you into scenery and what's around you, and that you see somebody just kind of stop. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen all the time.
Thank you.
Yes, I have a quick question, and I apologize if you did cover this, but I don't think you did. With regard to e-skateboards, I'm assuming the terminology is the same. An e-skateboard is an e-scooter? Is that the same thing?
Yes, and e-scooters, when I say that, you see them around different cities where you can just put your app or whatever, get tap and just pick it up, DC, Texas, all the big cities and things that have it and just kind of lay them off down or park them when they go around and charge the batteries. So they are a mode of transportation that they're usually very good, but again, there's no necessary supervision or whatever for the younger ones. And as far as just catching up, and then so when they're not out on the boardwalk, you got a summer officer or anybody, somebody beach ambassador saying, hey, you can't be up here, or that you're never going to catch them unless they want to do the right thing and stop and say, oh, I was unaware, and then get off. And again, I don't want to take away because there's a lot of great people out there too. It's just like, not to get into weeds though, but with e-bicycles, if I go interpret the law to 100% of that law written, it would tell me no e-bicycles, if it's engaged or not, it's not out on the boardwalk. The reality is, if somebody's just pedaling like a regular bicycle, is that the intent? That the law might have to be looked at to say, is that what do we want? If we don't want them on there at all, it's going to be very difficult for a person just walking down and it's not engaged to say, oh, that's the electric bicycle 2 blocks down by the time they get by you, or if they engage it after they pass you, if they see the officer or somebody, or maybe it's not officer, maybe it's just less crowded, So hey, I slowed down here, I just pedal my bicycle, nobody else is here, and then I engaged it. So that becomes very difficult again about enforcement. But technically, how I interpret the law is that they couldn't be on there now even if it's not engaged because it has a motor on it. I don't know what this committee or the commissioners would like. Things have changed. Technology has changed, in fairness.
So that's one of my questions. I see a proliferation of these e-skateboards. They're like gnats in traffic. I mean, they're all over the place. They go up on the sidewalk. They come back into the roads. They're 10, 11, 12-year-olds. There's no helmets on. There's no protective gear. And I know you said that there's little regulation statewide. But my question was, and I apologize if you already addressed it, so can Rehoboth develop regulations for things like that? Is that
I believe the answer is yes. It gets into about enforcement, and again, when I kind of relate it to when we're talking to the J1 students, they're allowed to do something here, but then they come in our town different. Everybody that comes in everybody's town is responsible. They're responsible to know the rules and regulations. But there needs to be a little bit of consistency in and out. Again, I won't speak for the legislators, but I think a lot, I don't, not necessarily here, more talking about the state now, is it's a mode of transportation, as if we give them a way to get around or whatever safely, as that's what we're all want to do, then it's probably a good thing. It's the ones that don't do it responsibly or whatever that we have to sit there and look at it, unfortunately, and that's what gets the blame, because there's a lot of people trying to do the right thing and just get to work and all. So it certainly needs to be looked at, but I don't think the state necessarily wants to look at it into, unfortunately, what always happens into something tragic happens, and then, oh, what should we have done about it? As you see them on sidewalks, out on the highway, out on the bike lanes, you see them that. I would sit there and tell you, it depends on how wide your streets are, what can you do. We talk about environmental. I'm very impressed at times with our neighboring town, Bethany Beach. If you go down there at Garfield Park or whatever, they'll have a sidewalk, and then they'll have something for bicycles and e-bicycles or wherever. They put another lane, and then they have then they put another area for parking or whatever, and then a lot of moped parking, and then that's all combined. Then they have the two-way streets, and then a sidewalk on the other side. Again, Garfield Park, if you're down there, it's very wide, and they keep it straight. And that's the other thing, has to be an investment. We talk about environmental, where is the designated lanes at? Are people over as far as they can be, for parked cars? Again, that we talk about, you asked about parking. I don't mean to confuse the two together, but that's the one thing that we get asked about all the time. We're not enforcing the cars too far out towards the roadway. In fairness, if somebody's got flags all along their front lawn or whatever, the person's trying to be curious, so they're parking as close to as they can, or if the trees haven't been trimmed back or where it opened their car doors, they're going to be stuck out, and there's no lines on a lot of those streets, just some pebbles, stones, and stuff like that at times. So we sit down and try to get curious and knock on the door, can you move your vehicle, or if we can locate them. So again, being in this type of town, is that's the unique challenges we have, is trying to be fair and realize people are sometimes on vacation or just don't know, or the area's not allowing them to always do everything 100% the correct way or whatever, but we said I try to work together with them. And sometimes, yes, that means enforcement. And also, yes, you could do your own. I think it needs to be well advertised and get the information if we're doing something different than the state or our neighboring towns, because you can put all the laws on the book, but if you can't really enforce it, then it's a waste of time. That's just being honest.
Thank you.
So, Mark, sorry to interrupt. Just the Delaware Bicycle Committee is currently looking at the definitions of e-bikes versus mopeds, electric mopeds, and is considering some of these things in signage. There was unfortunately a death up near Dover of a kid riding a moped down a sidewalk. And so, again, this is being looked at in a lot of different places.
We're going to have
Yeah,
public
thank you for
comment
that.
coming up in
That's
just a
correct.
second. So hold off. Comes in here, it's got to come out my mouth. Well, you got to wait till public comment, though. Those are the rules.
Cliff?
So I know Chief Banks would be disappointed if I didn't bring up the subject of Sharrows.
Yes.
Does everybody know? No. And this is my point.
I don't know how to spell it.
It's arrow with a sh in front.
Okay.
They're the chevrons with the bicycle in the middle of the street that nobody knows what they mean. Okay. So in addition to Sharrows, I'd like your thoughts on the importance or not of trying to get bicycles, mobility devices off of Rehoboth and Bayard and Columbia through some of the quieter streets. And then I have a follow-up question.
Again, it's not trying to be wishy-washy, again, because ideally it would be nice to get most of those, because cars can back out and we don't want anybody to get hit that's lower than the back bumper and things to be seen. But the reality is there's a lot of bicyclists that are really good bicyclists, and they know the laws. They can maneuver, and they know how to ride a bike and where to go. So why shouldn't they be able to be there? But we have a lot of novices that's just, maybe they haven't been on a bike for a while because they're on vacation and get out and just have a nice time with their family and friends. And also, there's different levels. So I hate to sit there and say, no, they shouldn't be A, because some maybe could be A on there. But the reality of it is, again, gets into about the consistency, where how are you going to mandate and funnel somebody over? About the sharrows, I think where you're going, again, if I misquote this, let me know, but I believe it was under Markel's administration that, and you may know better than me on this, is that once you do change up your streetscape or something, repaving, complete repaving, he was big into bicycling and all that, the sheriffs had to go back in or whatever. So that's why it was brought in, because I know it's not, the city, I believe, got some calls and stuff. I'd rather you don't put those back. Why would you put those back? And my understanding is that it was regulated, since it was a DelDOT project, helped fund some of it, that it was going back. Sharrows, the reality, the other comments I get about Sharrows right now is, well, since they've gone back in this past summer, the bicyclists just take the whole lane up and they're not being in line tandem. The reality is, if you ask Anthony and all with Department of Transportation and all that oversees these projects, they'll sit there and tell you that is what the sharrows are meant to do. They want you to take the lane up so cars don't try going by and things like that. So in a beach town that does, people are always in a hurry everywhere. That does come problematic at times. But if it's what I've seen, I guess sometimes gets asked, for the most part, that doesn't become an issue, except for when you have kids that's trying to be just kids at times. And then that comes problematic if they're doing wheel stands or they're going back and forth and taking and not being considerate at all. Again, that's not the majority. So it's hard for me to say, is it working or not? I think the law is that we had to put the sharrows back, so it really doesn't, that's kind of a moot point, sort of, in my opinion on that. Does it work? Yeah, they're going for why they're doing why they were created and to do that. Now, I think each community can say, does it work for us if we like them, if we don't? I think that's an individual thing, but I think Department of Transportation will probably tell you that they do their job.
But Chief, doesn't the law say that you're supposed to be in the far right lane of a two-lane road, that a bicycle is supposed to stay to the far right? So my question is, because it's right here in the Delaware Code, that's what that says in here. My question is, why would we put them in both lanes? And especially because one of the biggest issue you guys ticket for is bikes making left-hand turns at the lights where you're not supposed to turn left, because I know a lot of people have gotten tickets for that. So why do we have them in both lanes versus just the right lane?
Good question, and my understanding was that it was regulated by the state when we did a total repavement. I may be wrong on that. That's what I was advised by the project manager.
Only be a topic.
And all that. So I don't want to misquote the state law where that's what I was advised. I know some of my officers said the same thing. Says, okay, why are they in both lanes? They weren't, before. And all. So I don't want to misquote the law, but that's my understanding of that. But I certainly love it. If you guys have that topic, I'll do the research and make sure we have the information for you.
No. Yep. And question two, you brought up the subject of education several times. Do you have the material your officers need to educate the public?
I think so. The city used to have their own maps and things handed out. We had a different version that right there holding up that we hand out now. All my bicycle officers.
You don't have that one?
We do have some of those.
Is that ours?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
That's the one.
yeah, we
RBH.
reproduced that or whatever. I took it upon myself. I think you asked the city at one time, this old committee, to sit there and do it. I don't think they necessarily took it upon as a department and all. So I just went ahead and I just put in my line item to sit there and make them.
So
be
you like that
produced.
one?
Yes, they're very helpful and all that. Yes, sir. And I thank the previous committee for putting that together and working with that with our.
Actually, it was a homeowners
You know what? You're absolutely right. right, the homeowner association,
all the
so
same
thank
people.
you. Well, we're all friends here.
And
That's the
and
nice
so
thing
that
about
one, that
Rehoboth
one
Beach.
works for you.
Yeah, so we use that, and we get information from Office Highway Safety too, that we'll sit there and hand out on different campaigns with crosswalks and things too, but yes.
David, you have questions?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions. So the chief and I have talked at nauseum about crosswalk speeding and you name it, so I'm not going to go through all that. But I have 3 comments quickly. So one, I would make a recommendation that the Public Works Director should be at these meetings, because some of these issues that come up can be handled at a lower level. Right? Everything does not have to go to the commissioners in my mind. So my second question was, does everything we come out here, you're going to come up with some good ideas here that can be just resolved quickly by the police department, by the Public Works Director, as we did in the Streets Committee. What is the level that has to be elevated to the commissioners for this committee to take action?
Anything. I mean, we are an advisory committee, right? So we have no power to make any rules. We have power to advise the Board of Commissioners to make the rules. And they have an open mind, and they've assured us that if we're spending the time, they're going to give it some credibility. But they're not promising anything until they hear the background and the proposals and so forth.
Okay. In the Streets Department, a couple of things. When previous director, he said, I can handle that. That doesn't, and the city commissioner was here, or the city manager, we can handle that. But so, okay,
And
that's
we can
fine.
invite anybody at all to our discussions.
Okay.
We have free reign to invite, whether it be the police chief or the city manager or whoever.
Okay. And my
Mr. Chairman, sorry if I could intervene. That my caveat to that would be is that, from my understanding from the last commissioners meeting, that we just have to get permission from the city manager, my boss. So I guess you want one of us to be in here, just like today, the chairperson made sure, or everything I was allowed to come in here to the committee or whatever. So if we want the Public Works Director, I'm sure he'll be happy to clear his schedule. It just has to go through the chairperson requesting our presence.
All right, and my last comment, since I'm on the roll here. So Chief and I have talked about this for a while now. We have 3 entrances here to the city. We've talked about, it's the state law that, you have to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk. So up in Bethany and Fenwick, I believe, and Dewey, they have signs, that big flashing signs that says state law requires you to yield in the crosswalk. And you and I have talked about this before. Many people from out of state don't realize that. So do you think if we put right ahead of the circle near the bridge coming in on Bayard and on State Road, if you had just a big sign with, it flashes like they do down south, would that help?
I think anytime you're being able to educate the public and give them notice, it's going to sit there and help. Again, it's location and where you put the signs at and with private properties and how it's the locations. But let's just say all that is worked out and you have that. Sure, it gets into again, and you want to make sure the signs are appropriately sized and that you're just not overdoing it because. Not just because of aesthetics, but at the same time, it loses its importance. It's like if you keep putting stuff everywhere, it just, people get, it's not new to them to sit there and it catches their eye because you need to make sure it's something they're going to observe. So yes, you can have a flashing light, but if you have 5 or 6 of those, it loses purpose. It's going to say they're just speed stuff everywhere, and just keep going. So it does have potential of working. I think it just has to be, what do you want, and make sure you make good choices. Is there something else you attach to it, and what message is consistent?
Thank you.
Melissa?
Hello. I'm curious about Silver Lake Bridge. I live down that way, and in the summer, that bridge is so small that there's really no walkways on either side. I've seen 2 double strollers having to go into the lanes where cars are going. There's no way to get a wheelchair there. So I'm kind of curious about data about that. Are there accidents? Are there issues down there? Because it seems to me like that's a big safety issue.
What I will tell you is Rehoboth Beach doesn't maintain that bridge. It is a very small, tight bridge, and it has a lot of traffic that goes through it. It's also just outside jurisdiction. When you come on that side of the bridge or whatever, that's going to be our line. So the bridge is actually a state territory, even though if you just go to the right to that development off backside of Terrace Road, that is it comes back in our jurisdiction around the lake. And also, the city really doesn't have control over that. I can obviously get some data. Have we been out there for some accidents? Yes, there has been not related to pedestrians necessarily, but we've had accidents out there late at night, bicyclists versus drivers. Somebody wearing dark clothing or whatever, or maybe alcohol was involved in things like that, and hit a bicyclist as they're leaving town or wherever. Has that happened? Sometimes, yes. Not often, but it has occurred, but not so much on the exact question you were saying that I'm aware of. I'm sure that somebody was actually hit. Other near misses, you might have to assume that yes, because the size of the bridge and the amount of traffic that comes over. Again, runners, walkers, baby strollers, bicyclists, scooters, cars. It has a lot of traffic.
Yeah, and it's a main artery to get out of Rehoboth or into Rehoboth. So Sea Witch, the big festivals, that area is just so congested.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that it's a state issue.
Again, I never want to sit there and say us against the state because it's working together, partnerships, and they've been fantastic or whatever. So I think if it's something the committee wants to sit there and look at, that's not to say that we can't sit down and try to get the people from the Department of Transportation in here. I'm sure they'll be glad to. Again, over the last years or whatever, and the different committees that's been already spoke about through the state aid with bicycle and transportation, they have really stepped up, in my opinion, and they're willing to sit down and hear the municipalities and all, and they're not nowhere near as quick saying no. They want to be partners. So I think if that's a topic you guys want to sit there and take on, because we're all in this together. I mean, my biggest frustration in many, many years here, well, this is just Rehoboth Beach or whatever. We're Rehoboth Beach. That's Rehoboth out there. That's not us. Well, make no bones about it from a law enforcement standpoint and a transportation standpoint. What goes on out there affects us directly, and we can't turn a blind eye to that. And if it's criminal stuff that's going on outside of town, it directly affects us. Because what goes on there is going to be in this area sooner or later. If it's upstate, it's going to come downstate at different times. So these aren't new issues. So it's really the mindset, in my opinion, is always what can we do to work together with the communities. And DelDOT's been a wonderful partner with that. And quite honestly, like I said, DART, they're more involved and all the time with our events and outside and transportation just throughout. So it's really nice to see. So I think we can open up our minds and try to expand if we need other people involved.
Listen, I don't think the commissioners have any objection to us discussing that, and even though it is a state road situation.
I would agree.
Well, thank you. I just think it's an ADA issue at a minimum, that, people cannot get across that bridge without fighting with traffic and bikes and whatever else is going on, but thank
Certainly
you.
worth looking into, absolutely.
Mike?
Chief, first off, thanks for coming. We appreciate you spending the time, and you've been here almost 45 minutes with us, so.
My pleasure.
So I know you've got a lot going on, so
Consider
thank
us
you.
all friends, and I truly mean that. I wouldn't be here 33 years if I love Rehoboth Beach.
The one thing I just want to stress is that when we talk about rules and laws and what we can do to help with traffic, and there's so much that's already out there, right? I mean, there's so many rules. There's rules and laws for everything we've just discussed, right? The challenge comes with enforcement, right? As you'd said. We talk about these scooters, and scooters are a huge thing, huge issue, right? The law says scooters absolutely are not allowed to be on public roads, right? It flat out says that right here. But then it says, a low-speed motorized scooter, this section does not apply. Well, what's the difference between a low-speed motorized scooter and a motorized scooter that says absolutely can't be ridden? So I think that's the biggest challenge that you deal with and that we're going to have to look at and say, how do you differentiate? Because I believe we have to differentiate, because I don't think we want to say no motor vehicles, no bikes allowed on the boardwalk, or no bikes allowed in the city, and no bikes anyway, because we have a challenge with motorized scooters, right? So I think we have to be able to differentiate those, yet also I think we're going to have to understand that what we recommend also has to be enforced, because laws that can't be enforced really are useless. And you've brought up some of those challenges with enforcing some of these things, which I think are valid. So I think that's one thing that we have to look at and say, let's present challenges that we see, but we also have to have the mindset of, are they enforceable?
Wonderful point. And when we change something here, again, because a lot of our laws reflect the same exact thing that the state law states or whatever. A lot of it's just cut and paste. Nobody's really changing a lot, depending on how long the law has been on the books. So, you know, again, it may be something this committee comes to and then brings to the commissioners to sit there and say, hey, we really need to be an advocate up in Dover. We need to sit there and see what we're saying, and does something need to be changed? And there's these other bicycles. There's so much work being done, as it was mentioned earlier, throughout the state in different committees and all that. And the reality is, the bicyclists, the cars, everybody wants to do the right thing for the majority, and they want to make sure it is safe. But there's the committees, they don't want to see bad behavior neither. And again, there's a lot of good people doing it for the right reasons. Transportation, help out with parking spaces. So what can the city do to try to change the law for help with enforcement? And with better enforcement, at the same time, even if you're not giving a citation, to stop them, better to educate them and give out the flyers and give them the clear cut what the rules are for that. But it really doesn't stop just with Rehoboth Beach, because they're not just stopping at our bridges. They're out on the highway and things like that. So again, that's what they're doing coming into town. They're not going to change that behavior. So, oh, I'm at the line, I need to change here, because they don't understand it. They're here for a weekend, for a week, or maybe this summer, and then they move on. So we have to make sure we're consistent with the state. Very good point.
Everybody up here all set? I'm going to open it up to the public. Now, we have two opportunities for public comment. The first one is for anything relevant to what Chief Banks was talking about, on topic, as we call it. Shortly after that, we will have, after the chief is done, we will have another opportunity on anything new that you would like to bring, anything at all. The topic, the floor is yours at that point. But now I'd like to ask if the public has any comments they would like to make relevant to Chief Banks's presentation. Yes. Wait. There's a rule. You need to walk up to where Chief is. Yes, we have to, you need to walk up to the microphone to talk. My keeper just told me I was wrong. Yeah.
We'd like to provide.
Right, so as I say, just you have to do it from the microphone, right? This one doesn't work today because the camera's out. That's why, it's a.
Hi,
right.
Mike
Yeah.
Bova, 136
Wait.
Henlopen Avenue.
Okay. And your name?
Mike Bova.
Thank you. All right, go ahead.
What's the definition of a scooter? Someone draw me a stick figure. I'm confused over something you sit on and do this, or something you stand on that looks like a skateboard and has a handlebar on it, and then e-bikes. What are those defined? What's the actual terminology of those items? I know what a moped is. I think people are using the term scooter for a moped, or vice versa. What's the thing people stand on that weave in and out of traffic all day long?
These are for your comments, they're not to question us.
Yeah,
mean,
I'm confused over what some of the topics were, what the item actually is, weaving in and out of traffic that you mentioned. That I'm unaware of.
Maybe the chief can enlighten you in some way. But
And then I have some
Yeah,
other.
great question. Without getting to all the definitions, because I'd want to read that verbatim to you, but what we were talking about today are the e-scooters where it is just a board with a pole up or whatever, and you can, with two
That's called the
handlebars.
e-scooter,
So
okay.
that's what I was discussing today when we're talking about out in and out and seeing more of those in the area. And there's another type, I don't know, I call them a big wheel. That's the electric wheel, where they will run 40, 50 miles an hour and on just one wheel that's
Yes,
going around
okay.
that we'll see in town here at times and out on the highway and Route 9. So there are different things. So again, great point. I think when we're talking about that, we need to sit there and say, probably when we're having a discussion, this is what we're talking about. If it's going to be a sit-down moped or if it's going to be a scooter, with what type of scooter.
Okay.
So good point.
Those seem to be the biggest violator in town that I've witnessed for the 1 year I've been here. You can be on your bike and all of a sudden something just flies right by you. Even with the mirrors, you don't even see them coming. And like you said, they go up on the sidewalk and they go around cars, between cars, across cars. It's totally out of control. I've never seen anything like it. mopeds can be bad enough, but the scooters, the e-scooter, is incredibly dangerous and causes a lot of havoc. And it gets people in their cars very angry and upset, and that causes a lot of friction. We're on Henlopen Avenue, and we were talking about calming ideas. Being there 1 year and observing for a year before I even started speaking out about this stuff is the amount of vehicles of any kind blowing through stop signs. Not a California roll where you slow down a little bit and go, no hesitation whatsoever, especially during the height of the season, which now is about 5 or 6 months. I'm right in front of the stop sign on Easton Street. And if I was to take a tally, which I probably should have, I'd have to have 500 pieces of paper. It's way out of control, and I know we can't have someone standing there all day long, but there's zero stopping. Not the California roll, zero stopping. And the next stop sign is a half a mile away, up at the entrance of Henlopen Acres. That is a speedway. I've done things I probably shouldn't have done by standing in the road and just standing there with my dogs, where people are going every bit 45 to 50 miles an hour up there until they get to that stop sign. So my thinking is, if it might help, I think anything might help if we put an effort into it, is to put a stop sign at every intersecting road off of Henlopen Avenue up to the ocean, because that will squeeze down the amount of time and distance people have to drive fast. Even on Fenton Street, all the way up any road that comes in, Garrar Street, any of them, I think that would help. I don't want to have 500 signs and yellow lines everywhere on every road in town. That's not what we're about here. But some method to squash that distance where people can step on that gas pedal, I think could be helpful. And I don't know if the city is in control of stop signs or not. I don't think the state is, unless it's Columbia. But Henlopen Avenue is part of the bike trail. It's part of the bike trail. And the mix of commercial vehicles, people who live in town, vacationers, bicycles, dogs, you name it. I'm shocked that people have not just been wiped out on that road for the last year I've been there. The amount of weaving in and out, commercial vehicles hauling sod, cement, you name it, lumber, 18-wheelers up and down that road. The mix is highly dangerous. So I don't know, I'm not going to say certain places they should go, but is there a way to eliminate that kind of traffic on Henlopen Avenue? Because other roads are not the bike trail. And another road not too far away is not where people walk their families and dogs and bike on. You can't. But Henlopen Avenue is. I don't know another road in town that has more people, pedestrians walking their families and dogs and biking than Henlopen Avenue. And if I'm wrong, I'd like to hear where that is. It's just nonstop. I'm not sure of too many other calming methods. Field of View is another one at Grove Street, where it connects to Henlopen Avenue. If you stop and the park is on your left, you don't have any field of view. Just like a forest of greenery around that stop sign. You can't see the road at all, so you got to inch your way out to get onto Henlopen Avenue. I still think lowering the speed limit could be helpful. Most people drive faster than the speed limit anyway. So why can't we back that down a little bit to the point where maybe they drive 25 versus 35 or 40? Because that's just a mindset. You drive on Route 1 from Pennsylvania, where we have a house, it says 55, people are going 75. And if you go 70, people are going 85. And again, we can't change everybody's mind, but we have to make an effort, not just on Henlopen Avenue, but all through town, to get people to slow down. I don't think yellow lines and 5,000 blinking lights are going to be the answer, because that's going to take away the charm of this town. But some method to calm people down on all the roads, not just ours.
Sir, I think we have to cut you there. Is that all right?
I could keep going, you know me, so I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Elise, did you have comments? I know Hoyt's coming up.
Yeah. Hello, Elise Burns, 130 Henlopen Avenue. And I think Mike and I are here to represent our neighbors on Henlopen Avenue, and appreciate Chief Banks for bringing up Henlopen. You know, my husband and I moved to Henlopen in 1997. And to Cliff's point about quiet streets, it used to be a quiet street. And a lot has changed in the last 6 years, including the installation of the speed bump in the summer of 2019 on Columbia Avenue. But then we also had COVID, and a lot more people wanting to walk, bicycle, walk their dogs in the pines. You know, they're looking for shade. We have a wonderful tree canopy. And then being designated as a primary link on the bicycle path, the Breakwater Trail, from Grove Park up to Gordon's Pond and Henlopen State Park. And as Chief Banks mentioned, it's also the proliferation of e-bikes used as primary modes of transportation. And that's what we see. We see people coming from outside of town on their electric bikes, zooming past our homes. And that is a recent occurrence, I would say, in the last 2 years. We've just seen the numbers and numbers increase where, this is all anecdotal observation. That's why we'd like to have more traffic studies done, more data to back all of this up. But I noticed, very interestingly, right after Labor Day, the e-bikes almost disappeared, and we were back to recreational bicyclists. And so they are a means of transportation, and they're mixing with the trucks that we believe are coming over onto Henlopen because they don't want to use the speed bump. I mean, a lot's changed. You know, we noticed a decrease in truck traffic on Henlopen this summer because the speed bump was not on Columbia. And so, I mean, we have to look at a holistic approach. It's just not putting a speed bump on Columbia and thinking that's going to solve the problem, because you're going to have unintended consequences on streets like Henlopen and the side streets. And so I think our main message is that the residents on Henlopen, especially on the blocks from Grove up to Henlopen Acres, would like to work with Chief Banks, with your committee, with the commissioners, with City Manager Taylor on a solution to our I would say our new issues that have increased just because of, you know, what's been going on in the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Elise. Hoyt, I just want to mention, by the way, usually we restrict these to 3 minutes, but we're ignoring that rule today because, being the first meeting, no one had the opportunity to be agendarized, to put on the agenda. So that's why we have a little more flexibility today than normally.
How you doing, folks? You're looking good, I'll tell you that. Thank you very much for having me, Mark.
Excuse me.
Appreciate the
Excuse me,
opportunity.
Name and address, please, for the minutes.
Excuse me.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Everybody knows it, but I'll tell you. Hoyt Decker. I'm on Laurel Street in town. Is that good? Thank you. So did everybody get a copy of this memo that I sent out? Did you get one? It's on its way. So actually, I would like to start off by following up with what the chief said earlier in his comments. He spoke about public awareness. Oh, boy. And also consistent enforcement. And indeed, those are the two key elements of what I'm suggesting in my memo. So for those of you that don't have a copy of it, and just in general, I've addressed different bodies, persons about this thing since back sometime around 2023, I can't remember. But anyway, the main thing that I started with was trying to reduce speed limits to 15 miles an hour on residential streets. That didn't seem to go anywhere at the moment. And then I spoke about speed bumps. And there's two kinds of speed bumps, and I think the one that you're referring to on Henlopen Avenue is one of these rubberized things that they bolt down, and it really drives people nuts. In fact, I have a term for it. You know, NIMBY? I have new foam, which is not in front of my house, okay? And then there is it's kind of more like a ramp and I've identified it in this memo, but again, I can't remember. One is a speed bump, one is a speed hump. But anyway, that's a little easier to go. So anyway, spoke to my neighbor across the street here about a year ago, and he told me about this program that they initiated down in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And what they did was they realized that what we need to do is like a three-prong approach to resolving the issue. One is raise awareness. So they went through this whole publicity thing. I've got a couple examples that I can tell you about. They give you statistics. They say speeding has become socially acceptable. Then they talk about distracted driving. What was it? The year was 2017. Let me see here. Where am I? There's like 3,166 people were killed in fatal crashes that year for this study period. 401 of them were on their cell phones. So now, what I'm suggesting is also enforcement, consistent enforcement was your term. So on my street, much like Henlopen in Columbia, on my street it's St. Edmunds. So on Sunday morning, about 8 o'clock, these people are flying down. They got to get Holy Communion. 10 after 8, they're down there. Boom. 20 after 8, they're zooming back. Okay? And so, to your point, I actually went out and got an app. There's an app. There's a speed gun app. There's actually a couple of them. I went out and got one. And so the other day, getting ready for this, after I'd spoken to Mark, I stood out there for about 2 hours. There were about 5 cars that went by. So I totally appreciate what it means when I suggest that you put out some officers with a speed gun. It's going to work a lot better in the summertime because, you know, in addition to Sundays, they're all flying down there. But in this time of year, it's not going to work too good. But it is an option that I think should be considered. And then you follow that up because in the case of Virginia Beach, oh, excuse me, I left out something important. $20 fine is what the current rate is, okay? They put out this new speed gun on Route 1 going south. They're talking about 20 miles an hour if you go 11 miles over. Well, on our street, that's 36 miles an hour. And $20, I can't even get a good martini in this town for $20, okay? So come on. So in Virginia Beach, 200. Now maybe that's a little high, but 200. That's going to get their attention. You put up a sign, 25 miles an hour, or maybe even 15. Some places you can vary it. Put that sign up that says, "We strictly enforce." $200 fine. You put that right on the sign, little print. Makes them slow down to read it. And so in the end, in the case of Virginia Beach, they had a very significant drop-off in the amount of speeding in their community. So take another look at my suggestion. I can give you guys copies of this thing. If you give me an email address, please give it some consideration. Any questions?
Thank you, Hoyt. I just want to point out that today's decision is not whether we agree or don't agree. It's only whether we're going to take the subject up
Right.
to the commissioners. So
Right.
thank you. So in other words, you may have to come back and say this all again.
I'm here.
All right.
And I don't have any more eye doctor appointments either. So.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Hoyt.
Thank you, guys.
Is there anybody else from the public has anything that they would like to add? Well, then, I see that. I'd like to thank the Chief for his time today. Thank you very much, Chief Banks.
My pleasure.
And I have a
Thank you.
funny feeling we're going to be seeing you again.
Look forward to working with you. It's like I said, it's a joint effort.
Great. Well, thank you, sir. All right, I guess we're ready to move on to the next subject, which would be any ideas that you folks have of things that we should consider putting up as topics of discussion. We'll start at that end this time. Mike, how about you? And just a brief summary, if you would.
Yeah, obviously speed has become a big issue and things we've heard about through both up here and guests. And then I think we have to tackle at some point the whole alternative mode of action, of movement. So the e-scooters, the bikes, I think that has to be tackled. I think it's been going on for years, I believe, in past here and there. And I think it's something that needs to be addressed because A, we want to encourage it, but B, we want to also make sure it's safe and works within the community. So.
Okay, I got those down, thank you. Melissa?
I think I agree with Michael that we have to look at congestion in the city and all these different modes of transportation that are going on and try to figure out the best way to move forward to make sure that everybody has some access to the road safely. And it sounds to me like speed limits might be something we want to talk about.
Thank you. I just have a couple here. One, I agree about this dog issue on the boardwalk. You know, I've talked about that. I'd really like to look at that, just increasing the time that we're allowed to have dogs on the boardwalk. The other thing is what I mentioned to the chief was installing the state law requires yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk. I think that would really make a big difference. And two more things. One is we talked about this on the streets committee, but we never went any further. On Munson Street, where they put the solar powered speed sign, it's made a huge difference because I drive down that a lot past the Commissioner Galante's house, and I think you could easily do that on Bayard because you already have the median right there. King Charles is another problem, but there's no place good to put it in my mind. But anyway, I think Bayard, you could make some money slowing people down. When you see the sign, honestly, you slow down. I do the same thing on Munson. I'm like, oh, I'm going 24, I better slow down. And the last thing I had was the new handicap ramps on Rehoboth Avenue. A couple of them have a railing, and some of them don't. And then I've seen people actually walk off them because they're not painted. There's no paint on it. I don't know whether the paint would help, a railing would help. One of them has a railing, but the others don't. And you can literally, while people are looking at everything, you can literally walk off that ramp and fall. I know we can't prevent everything, but I think that should be looked at.
I think the commissioners are looking at that.
Are they?
I believe that there's work to be done there yet.
Okay.
I'll find out for you.
Okay. All right. And that's all I had for right now.
So first a question. Since we're a new committee, do we have an opportunity to have a subcommittee?
We'd have to discuss it. I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
you're the first one to bring it up.
Yeah, no, I just, heard so many comments about, e-mobility, bicycles and e-bikes and, those sorts of things that seemed like there was a,
I would only say, I would hate to limit the discussion just to 2 or 3 people. In other words, if that's what you mean by a subcommittee.
well, I mean,
Certainly
maybe,
have a subcommittee do research.
Right.
And then bring the research back to everybody.
correct.
Right,
Yeah,
that'd be fine. I
yeah.
don't see any problem with that. Yeah.
I think that might be, worth considering in terms of kind of the breadth of the topic. Yep. So, what I would like to see, continued discussion on is, how do we move the families and the kids on the, 12-inch wheeled bicycles going down Rehoboth Avenue and in particularly Bayard Avenue and weaving in and out of the parking spaces. They've got no mirrors. They don't know who's coming up behind them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I did have a discussion at one of our symposiums in Bethany with the Deltot representative, and he said, yep, those are subjects that should be discussed in Rehoboth Beach, along with Sharrows and other things. So I'd just like to perpetuate that topic.
Sounds good. That it? You had a longer list than that.
I'm, saving some of
all
my
right,
ammunition for later.
Patricia?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to just second what Cliff had said. My idea was with the subcommittee, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's see what other cities are doing. What's Ocean City doing? What's Bethany doing? I mean, this can't be the first time the subject has been brought up. So I think it could be an easy, smaller committee to look into what other people are doing in relation to all of these motorized whatever, all these
And
vehicles.
just so you know, Chief Banks and I, at the behest of the mayor, have been to 2 bicycle and pedestrian symposiums in Bethany.
Okay.
They were okay. I think they're getting better. They were just the first 2, right?
Thank you. I would add to that, each spring, and they'll have another one they're talking about, and I know I was just down there at another event last Wednesday, and they're part of that symposium, they're maybe trying to get the governor to be able to come there too and talk about some of his plans at the next one. That being said, you talk about other committees and all. I think that's a great idea. Again, at the rec meeting last week, Lewis had a lot of things. They have a different committee they just called, but they're doing a lot of good things around their town. And some things work, some things don't. They tried the transportation bus or the other year, and then they had to stop it or whatever. It just wasn't, for whatever reason. I don't want to speak for them. And also, but they have a lot of things that they're working on around town, getting around and making it more user-friendly. It's a little bit different town or whatever. They're spread out and things that make it different. But yeah, work with other towns.
Steve?
Yeah, I just want to, as a background, I came here from or through the Beach and Boardwalk Committee. And well, Melissa was saying, I wish I had $1 for every time I said we should have the same season for bike and dogs on the boardwalk. It would make, why we have 2 different dates makes no sense to me. So I agree with Melissa on that one. And I think the dog season should be extended early, 2 weeks earlier, 2 weeks later. And also, as a committee, I hope we don't forget that the safety, the city extends all the way to the beach and the boardwalk. We're talking about streets a lot, which is in our name, but safety is also there too. And I think we should, not take our eyes off the safety of what happens on the beach and the boardwalk as well.
Good point. Thank you.
I just want to clarify our procedurals so that we don't waste time doing something. Are we to come up with a problem, a solution, and how to and then that goes, how do we work this procedurally so we don't spin wheels?
That's exactly our concern, that we don't spin wheels. So our procedure is going to be, Patricia and I are going to take all these ideas together. I'm going to email you a list of them, maybe 25, and ask you for your 10 top priorities, that you number them. Next meeting, I'll have those. I'll mathematically figure it out to what our 10 top priorities are, the consensus of the board. And then we'll take each one and talk about them in depth and maybe limit that down to 5. We'll take those 5, maybe 6, back to the Board of Commissioners and ask them if they would approve, in a sense, us going ahead and doing in-depth studies on these. If they say yes, we'll do them. If they say no, we won't. And if they say yes, those that they approve, we will come back again. We'll take that one subject. We'll have public hearings just on that one subject and go like we normally would do. Then we would make recommendations and solutions and go back to the commissions with those. And hopefully they would be affirmative, as they had already directed us in that course of action.
Thank you. That clarifies a little bit.
It's a little complicated, I understand, but we're trying to avoid what you suggested, that we don't spin our wheels, waste a lot of time, and then commissioners say, no, that's really nothing that we're interested in doing. I think the dog situation, that's exactly what happened. That was brought up to the former Board of Commissioners, because I don't think any of those commissioners are still intact, but they after all the time was spent, they shot it down. And I know I was on the Parking Commission, and that's what happened. We spent 11 months coming up with 15 suggestions, and I think 3 or 4 of them were adopted. So to avoid that happening, we're bringing it to the commissioners first and getting their, authority to go ahead and take the next step, which is do the research.
Okay, and then the only other thing that I would say, and I've written more than one letter about this, is all of our in-season rules, parking, dogs, beach, boardwalk, should all be the same dates.
I think
People
that's
are
exactly what-
so confused when they come to know what starts when. So my priority would be a simple thing to tackle that, because you're either going to do it or you're not. And
We
then
don't
we
need to do
can
much
look,
research, do we?
and then we can look at the other topics we've brought up today. Thank you.
Did you have something, Dave, on that?
And just
Before we go to Colin?
real quick, just following up what you said, and then the dog thing, there was 3 different topics, and they all got jumbled up together, and then it got presented as one, and then it all just said, no, I'm not doing it.
Dog bags and everything
It was
else.
dogs on the boardwalk, it was beach, and it was a dog park, and it was something else.
Okay. Colin, I'm sorry, you're next.
Yeah, so, one, you guys will hear from me, I'm always going to defend bicycling and walking. And so I'm a little, I'm conscious, I hope the committee doesn't become just something focused on limiting bicycling and become something focused on the bigger picture of safety and walkability and transportation around the town. And you'll probably see me push back on some of that stuff, so apologies in advance for that, but just a general comment. I'd like to see the town focused on a way to come up with a safe and comfortable way to go across town and into town via other forms of mobility. Other forms of mobility, biking, wheelchairs, and, anybody who's rolling, walking, et cetera. I think there needs to be a safe way to get from out of town down to the middle of town and across town. And I don't think we have that right now, and it's a combination of shares. I'd like to see bike lanes, right? And bike lanes, like we have coming to the circle almost, but then it sort of gets abandoned. I think that would be a goal for me that could use and would tackle a lot of these smaller problems of the various types of things. So that's number one. Number two, there are a lot of great organizations out there that are discussing all of these things and even come to conclusions. So I mentioned Bike Delaware. Maryland Department of Transportation had a walkability month last month with 2 webinars a week about all of these issues. And so pulling in some of these things and not recreating the wheel, I think is really important. Third, I think a lot of these things also have to do with, and this gets, I'm not focused on the date of the changes, but off-season versus out of season. And we already do things like no left turns at certain times of the year. Should the city be looking at more of that? Should there be stop signs on, near me, King Charles, at every block, because it's a beach block with people pulling kids across and everything else during the summer? And then just remove them during the winter if you don't.
Oh, that's seasonality.
Seasonality, yeah. And that could be the case in various places around town where we extend this concept of seasonality, which we've already admitted is there, into a variety of other things in order to make things safer during the year. I think those are probably my big, we didn't talk about parking at all. I don't know if that falls in the remit of this committee.
You mentioned curfew earlier.
And curfew, whether that falls in the, those are 2 things to me. Those are big issues that are worthy of, but again, I don't know if they fall in the remit. So.
Or specifically, maybe how would parking?
Well, parking, if you're an urbanist like I am, parking is very important to making things work. How do you look at the parking revenue? How do you charge for it? How do you turn it over to get people going to businesses, all sorts of things like that. And I've talked about this with a couple of commissioners along the way, but it gets very deep very quickly. And so it's one of those ones you don't want to spin your wheel on unless you really have a mandate.
But we took 11 months talking about parking in 2018
Yeah,
and
yeah.
got nowhere.
Yeah, and so it's one of those ones you
I'm a
might,
little
and
hesitant.
you kind of need a goal. You need a goal
it's
of
too big.
Because it's, do you want to drive revenue? Do you want to drive turnover for businesses?
And I only suggest if you want to bring up parking, we bring it small pieces of it at a time, not parking in general. Something more specific like parking on St. Charles, or something like that.
Yeah,
Meters
I'm trying to keep
versus-
my thoughts to the whole city rather than specific blocks, because it's really easy for me to worry about King Charles right by my house and speed and the width of the road and everything else. But I think as a committee, we should really try to focus on citywide initiatives that where we can. that then lead to smaller implication of things, in my own view.
Mark, if I would like to have a little bit more detail. If we tackle parking, I would like to have a little bit more detail from the parking department, because one of the issues I've seen is visitors who want to get a permit. I don't know how many discussions I've had with, it's 3:20 in the afternoon. I found a spot on Hickman Street to park, and I, as a resident, say you need a permit. Well, where do I get a permit? Well, trying to tell someone how to get to the parking department, because now the little guys are no longer selling them, and then saying, go park, pay 2 hours at the meter, and then find a spot to park. I'd like to know from parking, before we start tackling parking, what the updated plans are, because reading the Cape Gazette, it appears they're looking, or they're not looking, at how to do this by QR codes, by somehow we can make parking easier before we start tackling the problems.
The Cape Gazette thing was incomplete, so there was a lot of confusion.
Well,
And I
see-
believe Mr. Taylor or Mr. Tedder is going to be putting something out, it's clarification on that. But we could certainly invite June or somebody from the parking department to come in and have an open discussion with us on the whole subject. So you should know what's going
Parking.
on.
I'd rather not get my information from the
Gazette.
Cape Gazette.
Right.
No
Right.
problems with the Cape Gazette, but I'd rather us as a committee,
I agree.
if that could be one of our topics, to know exactly what's taking place before we start suggesting something that's already in the works.
Agreed. And I will do that. I'll make sure that one day we devote just to having them come as our guests.
I
and-
think
and
that
letting
would be
us-
very.
Just for the record, we're not going to be requiring people to have permits in their driveways, which is, which is how some people interpreted the Cape Gazette argument. It was a discussion about the spot in front of your driveway, which was always yours to use and will always still be yours to use. But it'll have to be a sticker on it so that the machines know that it's yours to use. At any rate, but we'll discuss that. Anything else up here?
Just a point of clarification. So we're also capturing that, all the citizen comment, right? So I didn't reiterate anything I liked that was said out there, but we're capturing that and we're writing that down in a list too.
We are.
Okay, good.
And by the way, Mr. Decker had given us all of his stuff in writing, and it's going to be part of the permanent record as of tomorrow, I guess, right? And you all got a copy of it also. So, under normal
you.
circumstances, that would have been on the agenda, but we didn't have the 7 days and yada, yada, yada. All right. So I'm going to open up to public comment one more time, in case anyone has comment on anything new, please, anything new. That gentleman had his hand up first, right, if you don't mind. You have to, up there. We can't, we're not just
No,
being
that's
mean.
fine.
We cannot hear you.
It came back to me that the stop sign issue in town is very conflicting. Stop, to me, means stop, whether you're a car or a bicyclist, whatever. And it's very confusing, especially during the summer months. If you're from out of town and you're ready to go, because you're already ready to go forward, and some bike comes ripping right through that stop sign, it sends a terribly dangerous mixed message. Well, why are they blowing through a stop sign? So my thinking is maybe during the summer months, you must come to a complete stop before you go forward, unless you're on, over by the Gordon's Pond, of course, or something. It's very dangerous because I bike everywhere, and I see people flying by me, no regards to even pause, and then cars have already stopped. Their mind is pushing the gas pedal down. They're going forward, and the bike goes right in front of them. So I think it's really dangerous to have that confusing, because it is confusing. A lot of people don't know what's going on in this town when they come for a week's vacation when they're from Tennessee, and people blowing through stop signs. So I think it's something to reconsider.
Just for you to be aware, Delaware biking law, if there is a stop sign, technically it's a look and go.
It's a yield sign.
Yes.
It's called the Idaho
It's,
stop.
it's
That's pretty loose, though.
And
Yeah.
I'm
It's
just.
a yield sign. For a bike, it's a yield sign.
Yeah.
I'm just clarifying,
Okay.
Yeah.
much like
Yeah, my
Colin
take
just
on it, it
said.
has been confusing to me, only been here a year.
Yeah, the way that Delaware looks at it, and I love the reference, it's more to a biker like a yield sign. Because a biker, technically, by the time you stop and by the time you start,
Yeah, you
you've
get ready.
lost your momentum with what you're doing. The confusion, as I hear you describe, that car is not realizing that biker
That's right.
technically
That's right.
does not have to stop.
Well, I see just as many go straight through it without any hesitation as they do who hesitate. Thank you.
Again, I think that falls under the category of enforcement, which we'll certainly be talking about enforcement. So, Hoyt, please.
Hoyt Decker, Laurel Street. I just want to confirm that the memo that I sent you guys is going to be part of the record, available to the public in the record?
Correct? Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, you started out, you were talking about civility code. What is that and where is that?
It is here in this building. You mean physically, where is it?
No. I mean, is that part of the city code?
Yes, it is now part of the city code. It's passed by the Board of Commissioners about this summer, July, I believe it was. And
Okay.
it simply was put in place
Okay.
because we lacked any civility code
Okay.
prior, and we had no means of enforcement when we had no code.
Oh, sure.
Unfortunately, we needed it this summer and didn't have it, so we quickly had our attorney prepare one based on other codes that she found in other places.
Okay.
And we put it in effect.
Is it in this-
It still might be subject to modification as we go, but it's better than nothing. Yep.
Okay, again, I'm looking for clarification. I communicated my concern about that and suggested a specific city code provision, a change. And you, actually, you responded to me
I
and said,
did.
maybe this should be in the charter. So I'm just trying
and
to.
it is going to be in the charter.
Oh, it is going to be
Right.
in the
We
charter.
haven't done the charter yet,
okay.
but it is in the records. I had given a copy to, of your data
Okay.
to Evan, I believe it was.
Okay.
And I suggested, and I believe it was Evan that had agreed, and he's working on it. So when the charter changes come, you'll see some very familiar language.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything up here? Then I'd just like to thank everybody. The last thing we do is set a date, and I would like to suggest that we try, anyhow, to make the same date every month so it's easy to remember. And I'm going to suggest the second Thursday. Thursday seemed to work when we took the survey for today. And if we did the second Thursday of every month, it would end up being December 11th as the next one. Does that work for, is there any reason why anybody can't make a Thursday, General?
I'm out of town.
That one day or every
That
Thursday?
one day.
Okay.
I'm out of town for that week.
Okay, well, I
That's-
think we're
I'm
going
just-
to miss one, and sometimes we'll miss one person, and we promise we will catch you up on what you miss. But if it works for everybody else, let's make that as a general rule. We can count on at least unless it's a holiday or something, the second Thursday of every month. The benefit of that is it gives us till the third Friday of every month, which is when the Board of Commissioners meet, that Patricia and I can get whatever we need to get to them. There's 5 days still to get it, and I will be on the agenda automatically every month. So that we won't have a long wait between our meeting and their meeting. Anything else, anybody? Then I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you all. I think this is going to be a very informative